Thank you everyone for coming along this evening. We're here to celebrate GUST 60 years of student television in Glasgow, and we have many generations here actually, which is great. And we have the current generation of GUST with us this evening, and that includes Bethany, who's the current controller. So Beth, I don't know if you wanted to say a few words. I believe you're coming to us live from the studio right now.
Can you not see us?
Yes, we've got you.
There you are. Oh, okay. Okay, we're all here. We're all here. Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Bethany, the current controller of GUST. I'm so excited to hear from everyone today. But yeah, this is us all here. So hi.
Hi guys. Hello.
So yeah, it's so exciting to celebrate GUST 60th, and it's so exciting to kick off our celebrations with the Zoom call today. And yeah, the only other thing I had to say was look out for some announcements. I think we're going to hold something in person in about February time, which is really exciting. So if anyone's interested in that, please stay tuned. Yeah, I think that's it.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, I believe you'll have a few customers for that social in February, Bethany and the rest of the GUST guys.
Yeah, please, if anyone wants to be involved, I'll take any help anyone wants to give. So yeah, that'll be really exciting.
Fantastic. Well, look, you have a lot of alumni here today from many years, sort of spanning different generations of GUST, and obviously there's 60 years of history, and we thought it'd be a good idea to get everyone together tonight and kind of go through that history and sort of celebrate the world's oldest student-run television station, which is quite an achievement, I think. So thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. And our guest tonight is Sarah, who I'm assuming that most people in here already know. But if you don't know Sarah, I'm sure she'll do a quick intro. But she was looking after the station back when it was the 50th anniversary 10 years ago now. So Sarah's got a really interesting presentation for us tonight on kind of the history of GUST and a few extra bits and bobs. If at any point you wanted to kind of get involved, this is for you guys as much as it is for anyone. So please raise a hand or write in the chat. We got some sections later on for some questions and answers, so please feel free to get involved and make this as interactive as you like. But I'll hand over now to Sarah, and she can take it away.
Great. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Let me just get my slides and stuff ready. I've got pictures and things to show you, so you're not just looking at my face for the whole time. So let me just do the grandma thing and sort it out. Give me just 2 seconds, and then make sure this all works. Okay, it worked earlier. Okay, sharing. Everybody can see that okay? Dom, give me a nod. You don't see my notes? No? Great. Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Dom, for that introduction, and thank you so much for everybody for coming here today. I can't believe it's been 10 years since GUST 50. Nice to see some people again. There's some people here who we haven't probably seen one another in person in a decade. So it's nice to have that reunion, even though it's virtual for now. So yes, I'm very proud to have been part of GUST, and it was such a huge, significant, amazing part of my life, and I'm very, very honoured to be involved again and celebrate the next big day. So I've made this nice little GUST 60 diamond anniversary logo for us, since I don't know if we had one formally, but this is the interim one before you do something official. So just a little bit about me to kick off. Here I am, young Sarah. I actually don't look very much different, I don't think. Yellower haired and maybe fresher faced, and that's it. But about me now, I am now an archive producer for TV production, mainly documentaries here in Glasgow. I still live here, I still work here. I moved to Glasgow from Aberdeenshire in 2012 for university. And I've never left. I've been able to make a successful career here, which is great. So I was part of GUST for 4 years during my time at university. I was in uni from 2012 to 2016 while I was studying for the Master of Arts Film and Television Studies course. During my time in GUST, I joined in first year. I was a general member for my kind of first year. Then I became the arts producer in second year. And then in my third and fourth years, I became controller. So from the 2014-2015/15-16 academic years, I was GUST controller. 2014, of course, was also the GUST 50 celebratory year. And during the GUST 50 event and project, I acted as deputy project director, alongside a large and incredible team of people. I really can't take too much credit for the whole event because I got involved much later than many other people. So there was a lot of people that put it together beside myself. Also during my time in GUST, I attended all 4 NASTAs, and we were lucky that we had quite a large sized station at the time. So there I am at my first NASTA in Exeter in 2013. I seem to be in GUST kind of at the right time in that a lot of anniversaries were happening at this moment. So my very first NASTA was NASTA 40, celebrating 40 years of the National Student Television Association. And I think there was 25, 26 of us that went to that NASTA. Then I went to the following one in Loughborough, and then again in Preston in 2015, and my final one in Leeds in 2016. So anybody else who's joining from other stations tonight, I don't know if we crossed paths at any point, but we might have been in the same place. Dom and I figured out that we'd both been at NASTA 40 together, but didn't know it. So you never know. So I finished my time in GUST. I graduated in 2016 and I went to work in factual TV here in Glasgow. I'm freelance. I've always been freelance. Largely that's how the industry works, but not for everybody, but I'm still freelance now. And was working away for a while. Long story short, that I'll get to a wee bit more later, but I eventually went back to university to do a postgraduate in, long title, but the official title I'll get to, but archive studies basically, and then use that degree to come back to television and specialise in archive research. So that's what I do now. And with my kind of archive background, I've been quite involved with the GUST archives. So today I'm going to kind of talk to you about my GUST experience, GUST 50 mainly, the event, what we did 10 years ago. The GUST archive, my experiences with them and my knowledge of it, kind of the physical archives and the digital archives, and then a bit about my career so far. So that's what we're going to do. After each section, we're going to have a little pause, and if anybody has any specific questions or thoughts or anything, then feel free to chime in. It's also a chance for me to get a glass of water because I'll be talking for about 45 minutes. So anyway, let's get going to section 1, GUST 50. 10 years ago. So GUST 50 was, of course, the 50th anniversary celebratory event that was held on the 18th of October 2014 at the Glasgow University Union. So we're almost exactly 10 years to the day since the event happened. We're literally 9 days out. It was such an amazing night, and it consisted of a drinks reception, an exhibition, we had a meal, speeches, a ceilidh, an after party, and the highlight of the night really was our keynote speakers that included Stephen Moffat, who was then the executive producer and lead writer on Doctor Who and Sherlock. And we also had former ITN CEO John Hardy joining us, both of whom were in GUST during their time at university. Other guests of the night included Gusties, past and present, key figures at the university, friends and family. And I think we had somewhere between about 80 and 100 people in attendance for the actual dinner, and then further people joined later in the night. But it was a really huge undertaking, and I'll tell you a little bit about how the event came about. It's worth noting that actually GUST 50 wasn't just the event. I think it was probably about 1.5 years in the works of planning. But I would say GUST 50 kind of came about as an idea when I was probably in about second year of university. I think at some point somebody realised that GUST was the kind of inception date was 1964. We don't have very many records from that time, very many physical records, so I think we're largely relying on kind of anecdotal evidence and oral history. But at some point this has been passed down through GUST, and we realised it's been 50 years and we wanted to celebrate basically. As you've seen from the photos of us at NASTA, during that time GUST was pretty large. We had probably a big membership of somewhere between, I would say, 50 to 80 regular members. So not only were we able to put together a team to work on GUST 50, but we were also be able to use the kind of people power of GUST's general membership as well. We also had really good connections with some alumni who had graduated, say, the year before or 2 years before, even I think up to 3 years before, who were still willing to kind of give their time to GUST to help us plan the event. So how exactly did we plan GUST 50? There was a big team, of course. There was a lot of people that needed to do a lot of things, as you'll see some from the photos that I'll show later. It was a really incredible night that had so many little elements to it. So we really needed people to work on logistics, communications, the website. This is kind of a screenshot of that here. Archive as well, kind of engaging with our archives and gathering materials from alumni too. Organizing events and kind of fundraising, dealing with press and promotion. Yeah, really huge undertaking. And the whole GUST 50 team, of course, were all kind of unpaid volunteers. The vast majority of folk were just students, just going about their daily life trying to plan GUST 50 around their degree. And of course, we had alumni who might have been working full-time jobs on top of helping us plan GUST 50. So what we did with GUST 50 is we came up with the idea, and then of course we needed to promote it. And this screenshot I'm showing you here is of the GUST 50 website, which kind of acted as the main hub of news as well as our social media to provide information about the event. It also allowed us the platform to share a little bit more about GUST's history, to collect alumni, connect alumni, sorry. And we were also able to share archive materials that we'd found ourselves or gathered from alumni. And there was this whole kind of, which I'll show in the next slide, there was a whole exciting way of connecting everybody with GUST's past, and the website was really a great place to engage with that. Hello Arif, welcome. So the website was also a great place to give information about the event. As you can see, there was like a button where you could buy tickets. We also had a donation button, and the website also contained kind of a comment section. And I take this screenshot, the website is no longer live, but I take this screenshot from the Internet Archive, if you're not familiar with it. Fantastic resource if you want to find something that's since changed online, and somebody's changed their tracks or changed what they've said. And this was the version of the website that later came about and allowed a comment section in which alumni could speak to one another. And actually, if you go back on the Internet Archive, as I've been doing, preparing for this talk, you'll see that there's a lot of comments from people who were in GUST in, say, the 70s, 80s, 90s, who found out about the event via the website and started like speaking to one another in the chat. And it's so lovely to see people's memories and things. And that's basically all now permanently preserved by the Internet Archive, which is really cool to see. One of the most exciting aspects of the GUST 50 website and allowing people to engage with our past, not just at the event, but in advance of the event, was through the website. And Christian Henschel, who I don't think joins us this evening, but Chris was really amazing at web design and tech. And the only this photo that looks a little bit weird on the left-hand side here is unfortunately the only photo I have of this amazing thing that Chris put together. And basically, GUST gathered lots of photos and records of GUST's past, and we even had kind of pages for people as well. And what he did was create this kind of interactive web where you could kind of hover about that kind of web-looking thing with all the little dots. You could hover above something, and we had people. So for example, like I was in the web, you could hover above a dot, and it might be me, and then a dot would kind of spawn off from me, and all the other records that were connected with me, you could click on it. So it was a really cool interactive way to get involved and understand more about GUST's history. So we had people in there, we had records. That other image I've included, I think we took photos of a lot of our NASDAQ awards, put them up on the website. Other photos that involved people, programs as well, were also linked to this kind of web. We had this kind of playing and sort of randomizing throughout the GUST 50 evening, so you could kind of see bits of archive popping up. But it was a really cool thing that unfortunately no longer exists online, but a really amazing way to kind of educate and inform about GUST's past and get people engaging with it and kind of organically being able to discover a wee bit more about the history. In advance of GUST as well, GUST 50, of course, there was a lot to do in terms of kind of promoting GUST, the event, and making sure that we got people to attend and getting the word out. Just as now, I think we're trying to get a press release off the ground for GUST 60 at the same day. At the same time, there was press going on for GUST 50. So some things that we did was we created a lot of promo videos. That one in the top right, I'm using kind of a, a bit of a vague photo here because I'm trying to use photos that, it's been 10 years, you know, digital footprint is a thing. Not many people want to be shown in negative light, so I'm using kind of vague images a lot of the time tonight. But we had some amazing promo videos made that kind of played on the themes of the evening. The GUST 50 event that culminated in October 10 years ago was a black tie event. So we kind of played on those themes, and the number one kind of black tie character that you can imagine is sort of James Bond. So we had this kind of James Bond-esque figure who joins us tonight actually. And we had other tropes in our promo video that kind of played off other aspects of GUST 50. So if anybody knows anything about GUST, we had this horrendous cockroach costume that people used to wear on sub crawls. I think my first GUST sub crawl, I turned up, went into a pub, and this cockroach just came out and greeted me, and I was like, okay, right, what what have I got myself into? I'm hoping you don't have it because it was like beer covered and really horrible. But the infamous GUST cockroach costume that I knew way back when made its appearance, of course, in the GUST 50 promo videos, and it kind of played this Doctor Who monster-esque character who was fighting James Bond. Don't even ask. But we were playing on all these little themes and tropes, and the Doctor Who reference was, of course, because of one of our key speakers who was coming, Stephen Moffat, the writer. So we made all these little promo videos and shared them, and they were a lot of fun. Oh, they're confused. Okay, honestly, good, because that means it's dead. So it's for the best, honestly. Other things we did in advance to kind of promote the event is we were filming with alumni. We met a lot of people and kind of filmed with them and spoke about their experiences. We dug out archive pieces. We made flyers. That little screenshot that you see in the bottom right is me on STV the day before GUST 50. I think they phoned up the office and I just had to go into the studios in a few hours and just talk a bunch of stuff. I do have that recorded, but I watched it the other day and you won't be seeing it for a reason. Yep. And we also had a really fun day as well where we invited a lot of GUST alumni to revisit the South Park Avenue studio that GUST has access to. I kind of had a vague memory of this the other day, and then I was going through my own archives of GUST. I've got so much. I've kept pretty much everything, honestly. Photos, videos, like artifacts, everything. And I was going through my hard drives and I found some really nice footage actually that was filmed on the day that we invited ex-Gusties to the studio to visit, and it was really nice to meet one another and find out the differences in technology and find out about different experiences. So as I said, GUST 50 culminated in the dinner in October 2014, but it was very much a kind of series of events that led up to that. You might also be wondering how GUST 50 was kind of funded. GUST at the time had a very small budget. Not very much, we used to be funded a little bit by the Glasgow University Student Representative Council, who runs kind of they're kind of oversee all student media. And we had a very small budget that year, very modest, enough to kind of replace, I don't know, one or two pieces of kind of decent equipment and little things like SD cards. But that was, the budget that year was really just for actual GUST as opposed to the event. So the event was really starting from scratch. So we had to fund ourselves largely through donations, fundraising, and the ticket sales themselves. So another point, actually, just for everybody's knowledge, in case you don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, GUST, but I believe apart from little bits and pieces from the SRC, I believe you are now unfunded because I experienced the cuts when I was controller. We were funded the first year I was controller. We had the biggest budget we'd ever had, and it was very modest. And then the following year, they cut it entirely. So if anybody wants to give support to GUST, perhaps we should, because they're not receiving any formal money from the university, as far as I'm aware. So hint, hint to them. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know. The SRC give us a little bit of money, but I don't know if that means we're funded.
Well, we pay for our Adobe, that's about it now. Passing the mic. We get Adobe subscriptions from them, that's about it.
Okay, so 45 quid a month.
Exactly.
Yeah, not ideal. That's pretty much the situation it was when in my second year's controller, when they cut the budget. They were willing to kind of pay for little bits and pieces for us, but nothing major. So it was very much, you kind of have to do the work yourself if you're going to, do any big events or buy big pieces of equipment, things like that. And GUST 50, obviously exactly the same thing. So in order to get that money, we did quite a lot of fundraising, and we held a few events, one of which I've got the flyer for there, which was the Glasgow Showcase. This was an event that GUST, I think, did most years when I was in it, and it was kind of an evening of entertainment that we put on at the Queen Margaret Union, kind of performers, bands, singers, things like that. You could pay for a ticket, come along and watch the event, and we usually filmed it as well. We also had another event called the Midnight Soiree, which was a slightly more intimate evening of entertainment. And then I also have a strong memory of selling Krispy Kreme donuts on Library Hill, so that was another another bit of fundraising we did as well. And also to get the word out there as well, we had to work quite closely with the Alumni and Development Office at the university. I think they did a really good job at getting in touch with alumni who we hadn't been able to reach through other means, and they also helped us get Stephen Moffat and John Hardy on board. So that's all the planning and other little bits and pieces about GUST 50 that went into it, obviously, to culminate in the actual event. So here we are on the night at the GUU. As I said, it was a black tie event. We had a lovely dinner, Kaylee dancing, video speeches, lighting, photography, a photo booth. There was a cake. I didn't even remember there was a cake until I looked at photos the other day. And in fact, there was actually 2 cakes, because there was 2 cakes in the photo. So when you joined GUST 50 on the evening, the Glasgow Uni Union was decked out in lovely lighting, which was done by Arif Nadeem, who does join us tonight, I believe. Is he still in? I hope so. He's in Hollywood, so he's joining us from a very exciting place. And it just looked absolutely beautiful. And the first thing that everybody did was there was a champagne reception. And then you could move into, I've forgotten what this room is called in the Union, the one on the left when you come in. And we had in there an exhibition, kind of a history exhibition of GUST, which was amazing for people to mingle. And it kind of showed photos of our own, of alumni, documents. We had projectors up that showed archive footage that we found, also our contemporary programs. It was a really great way for people to kind of get involved with GUST history. We also had some physical things on display as well. If you've ever been to the GUST office, you'll know that up around the top of the roof, they have a shelf that has all of the kind of awards and trophies that they've won over the years. So we got a big ladder and we took them all down and we put them up on display at GUST 50. So that was a great start to the night. And then we moved into the dining hall in the GUU and we had our 3-course dinner. The speeches we had that evening were by the GUST 50 project director, Alicia Tokarska, who's not with us tonight, unfortunately, but she was at the helm, really, of GUST 50 and did such an incredible job. And she'd actually graduated the year before, so was kind of doing this on her spare time. We also had speeches by James Chain, who was then an AP at STV, Chris Hall, who was then a production coordinator at a company in Glasgow called Raise the Roof. And I'll get to our other speeches, which you'll know about already, but it was a really amazing atmosphere and really no detail was missed. You'll see there's table names. We had little facts, I think, on our napkins. There was really, no detail had been missed at all. And of course, the wonderful lighting and the projectors. It was amazing. As I said, I think we had about 100 people in attendance, so you can see how busy it is once everybody's at the tables and everybody's kitted up in kilts and suits and lovely dresses, and it was amazing. I think this photo must be taken during John Hardy and Stephen Moffat's speech, because that's their empty seats at the very front there. So that was it. And then they spoke, of course. That was a really key moment of the night, and it was really exciting to hear them speak and talk about their time in GUST and really how it kind of gave them their first bit of TV experience and started them on this upward trajectory to where they are now. So they spoke together because they knew one another at university. And they were very funny and charismatic. And unfortunately, I don't really remember the bulk of what they said because I spoke afterwards and was nervous. So so they did their speech and it was all very amazing. And then it was my turn to speak. So there I am. I was only 19 years old when I was controller of GUST, because I came to uni when I was 17, Scottish school system. My birthday's in January, so I'm a little bit younger. But yeah, it was very scary to have to be the final speech of the night to kind of round everything off and speak as GUST controller and GUST 50 project, deputy project director as well. But things couldn't have been that bad. People are smiling at me. Stephen Moffat's smiling at me just at the front there, so that's okay. But it was a really fun evening. I'll show a little clip of my speech later because I've kind of used my past self to speak for myself now. And yeah, I rounded up the speeches there. And then after that, we had a ceilidh, a raffle, an after party. People could explore the exhibition again. The cake came out. And then we had a little photo booth as well, which was really cool. I've just taken this photo of myself, Stephen Moffat and John Hardy. I admit I've cut 2 people out of the edge because, again, I didn't know if they wanted to be involved or not, and I didn't have enough time to ask. So they've been cut out. It's not just me and them. And we also had lots of other funny photos of people with props and things. If you're more interested to actually see what the photo booth was like, I didn't want to embarrass anyone just now, but the full album of photos is still available on GUST's Facebook page, so you can go away and see people's silly pictures yourselves. But that was it. That was GUST 50. It was an absolutely amazing event. I met so many lovely people throughout the course of kind of the year that led up to GUST 50. And it really made me realise that GUST is actually really, really important to a lot of people. And I think I used to be a very kind of future-focused person. When I first became controller, I was excited for GUST 50, of course, but I was also really excited for my year as controller, and I was kind of just raring to go and start doing all these new exciting things. And it wasn't really until the actual GUST 50 event that I realised this station has such a history that's so important to so many people, and that I was a tiny little part of something that was so much bigger than I could have ever imagined. So yeah, it was really incredible. And the GUST 50 team did just such an amazing night that was really one to remember. And it's been such a lasting memory of mine from GUST. Huge undertaking. Don't blame me for not wanting to do something of this size again. I wouldn't. But it was really, really amazing. So yeah, I'll just kind of have a wee break here. If anybody has any other memories or questions or anything they'd like to share, then be my guest while I get a little drink of water.
So was anyone in the meeting actually at GUST 50? Does anyone have any memories?
Yeah.
Hey.
Hi, Dom. Yes, I was there. In fact, one of the pictures shows me talking to one of my colleagues from 1974, 73. So, yeah, I was there. It was great. It was superb. And at the time, I was actually in the RTS, on the RTS history group. And somebody plonked me on the top table, which is, I should have been with my colleagues, but it was good. So I was able to talk next to someone who claimed to have been there in 1964. So he's even older than me. Yeah, it was a really cool day. It was and loads and loads of friendships being made and sort of not being made and things like that. But it was a great time. It was a great time.
Oh. Yeah, it's definitely kind of an event I think that everybody who was there will remember. And it was so nice to have everybody in one place, because I think that must be, I don't know if formally there was any other events that had happened in the past kind of that scale, and to have so many kind of generations of folk that had been in GUST all in one place. So yeah, really incredible night. Okay, I'll have one more sip of water, and unless anybody else has anything else to add or say or ask, then I'll carry on.
I will say hello. I wasn't at GUST 50 because it was just before my daughter was born, so I was kind of on standby. I was controller in 2004, so helped organise the GUST 40th celebrations, which were not quite as big and didn't involve quite as many alumni, but we did do a nice sort of look back at things from the archive, and I still have a compilation we made of sort of 40 moments for 40 years, which I'll need to dig out and get online at some point.
Yes, definitely look that out. That would be so good to see.
But yeah, it's interesting you mentioning some people not wanting their footprint to be back online again. I did dig out also recently a subcrawl we did in 2004, 2005 thereabouts, and recorded, and it was a VT that went into Daft Thursday. Very chaotic, and I did have to check and think quite carefully, do all of these people in here want to be seen like this? Because there are some people who did some things on camera which they, as you say, might not want to be known these days, especially one of them who's now a vicar, might not want people to know what he was up to then.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Yeah, I definitely remember even in my time in GUST that people who'd left a few years before, certainly when they were applying for jobs and things, that I don't know how it is now, but the GUST website used to have anytime somebody had made a program or was linked with a program, you could obviously search their name and you could click on their name and see all the programs that they were associated with. And it is just something that we need to kind of consider in this day and age, that digital footprint is a thing. Certain people didn't want certain things to be shown when they were applying for, professional adult jobs. So I definitely remember receiving some emails of like takedown requests, or it can still be there, but just don't have my name associated with it in a way that you can click on it kind of thing. So that's something that I can kind of touch on when I speak about the GUST archive generally, actually. But yeah.
So yeah, kind of a big part of that GUST 50 project wasn't just the event itself. It was also diving into the archives, and I think that's where Sarah's got now a piece where she's sort of you're going to go through kind of the stuff that you managed to unearth during that project.
Yes. Okay, I'll kick back off again. So what I'll do now is I will speak a little bit about my knowledge and engagement of GUST's history and archives. So firstly, I'll speak about what happened during the GUST 50 project. So I touched on it briefly already, but during the GUST 50 kind of event planning, there was a team specifically put together that engaged with GUST's tape archives and also kind of looking out bits and pieces from the office and gathering photos from alumni as well. It was really important to, if we were holding this GUST 50 event, to actually understand our own past. If we're going to hold this event, we want to showcase the work of people that came before us, and we want to understand what GUST was like as well to put on such a big event. So this was a really, really important part of the project planning. There was only so much that we were able to do at the time, which I'll kind of get to, and there's arguably still a lot of work to do with this. But the really small GUST archive team that were put together at the time really did an amazing job with what they could do and the circumstances that allowed. There was about 4 to 5 key people that were involved in the GUST 50 archive project. I was not one of them myself. I was in GUST and involved at the time, but this was kind of happening on my periphery, but I'm very much aware of kind of the work that they did. So what they had to do is that GUST, we didn't have kind of old programs just sitting about the office. Obviously, we were very much in the digital age in 2014. That was not the case, obviously, when GUST existed back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even the very early 2000s. Of course, back then, people were recording on tape. So we went to the university archives, and I don't know who donated it in the past, but either some thoughtful GUSTies from the past or the university, what used to be the university TV service, had donated lots and lots of boxes of tapes. Now, these boxes contain tapes that span kind of from, I don't have exact dates for the very first tape. The earliest one that I'm aware of is from 1976. But the tapes generally span from kind of the 70s to the very early 2000s. And there's a lot of these boxes. And it's not kind of normal practice, but the university archives allowed us to take these boxes back to the GUST office to see what we could do with them. We took a look inside and it was difficult to make sense of what we were looking at. Not all the tapes were really well described. These screenshots that I'm showing you here kind of show the size of some of the tapes. Some of them, like that one in the image there, did have a lot of descriptions written on it. Other tapes really didn't have much information about them at all. So we didn't really know what we were working with here. And the reason that the university archives kind of allowed us to take these tapes back to the office is because, unfortunately, they did not have the means to play these tapes themselves. It's kind of unusual practice. As I say, an archive, if you're not familiar with how archives work, it's not like a library where you can just look up a book online on the catalogue, you go along, take it out, take it home, and then return it later. Archives don't work like that. You need to normally book in advance the materials you want to view. You have to keep them on site and view them on site, and then you return them to the archive because they're obviously being stored for permanent preservation in a kind of temperature and humidity controlled environment, and they need to be handled with care, basically. So it was a very kind of unusual circumstance that we were allowed to take these tapes back to the GUST office. But basically we had a lot of old equipment lying around, and there was a chance that we could play them. So the university archives didn't have the means to do that, so they were like, okay, we'll let you take them away, have a little look, see what you can do. But there was quite a few challenges we had with this. Obviously, the tapes that I'm talking about span the years from the 70s to kind of the very early 2000s. And there was, you think of the changes in technology that have happened over the last even 10 years since GUST 50, the formats and platforms and things that we use. Similar really fast changes were happening between the 70s and 90s, and tape formats were constantly changing too. So the tapes that we received in these boxes from the university archives included different kinds of tapes that you may or may not have heard of. We had different kinds called U-matic tape. We had two different kinds, high band and low band. We had Betacam, we had VHS, we had DVC Pro. If you don't know what those are, GUST people today born after the year 2000, don't worry. You might not have experienced it. Maybe a VHS if you're lucky. But obviously, these were not formats that were regularly used in the year 2014. The availability of the equipment to play these tapes was even rarer. But we were lucky that in the GUST office, we had a lot of kind of old equipment lying about. We don't tend to get rid of things. We're like, there might be a use for this. It's expensive stuff that was bought at some point. So it was always lying about. And we thought we might have the means to play it. Now, with a little bit of technical help from Arif Nadim, who was in GUST. He graduated actually the year before GUST 50. Very savvy technical man. He put together this machine, which was affectionately known as the Hydra, because of all the cables coming out of it. He kind of managed to bodge something together, and it allowed us to play the tapes. Not all of them, because obviously these tapes are quite old. They were held in the archive, and the archivists do an amazing job at keeping things in as good a nick as they can by having them in a controlled environment. But, a lot of these tapes were not produced in the first instance with longevity in mind. They're all made of plastic. These kinds of plastic that they're made of does degrade as they age. So aging still happens, despite the fact that the university archives are trying to look after them as best they can. So some of them were not really in the best of nick. But the team kind of did their best to take the tapes out and see what played. In order to play any tapes, you had to obviously pop it in the machine, and you had to watch it in real time to see what was on it. As I said, some of them were well described, some of them weren't. It was really just kind of take a tape out, see if it plays, see what's on it. So we did manage to watch some of them. The team just had to watch through them, see what it was, and the Hydra machine that was kind of linked up to this monitor and a computer, we were able to digitize some of the material as well. And the small collection that we did manage to view, and anything interesting we found, we did share on YouTube. So there is a small collection on GUST's, I think now old YouTube channel, that you can view. I've got a list of kind of resources and links that I can share at the end of this, so that you can kind of click on things and explore a little bit more about GUST's history. But what was really exciting and interesting at the time, when we viewed these tapes, was kind of viewing parallels in student TV history. Kind of at the time when we were making shows in studio in a certain style, and we were maybe mimicking the media that we were used to viewing on television at the time, GUST was very much doing the same back then. I think the earliest video that I viewed earlier today was a kind of like Blue Peter mock-up, and they were doing detective dramas. They were also just doing silly little student things that we've done forever and always will do. So it was just really fun to see that folk that have been in GUST have just always had the best time, just had a really fun time trying to make their own version of things that they've seen on TV, and also just silly little things. I remember my favourite video, which is part of the playlist I'll share later, was a silly little song that someone filmed in the studio, and it was just a song about the beer bar. If you don't know the beer bar, Glasgow University Union, Martin remembers, there he is. I won't sing it. It was the Glasgow University Union. There's two unions at Glasgow Uni, if you don't know already. Has a bar at the bottom called the Beer Bar, very infamous place. And there was this guy in GUST just singing about the beer bar, kind of acting the sort of drunken character, kind of swaying back and forth and singing.
The guy who wrote it and the guy who sang it went on to quite big careers in TV. I can't remember the names right now. I'll try and look it up. But
I need to take it out as well. I feel like I saw his name earlier when I was contributing to the kind of GUST 60 article we did in advance of this, and it's escaped me, but it's out there somewhere that we can find it. I think it's probably on the description actually of the video, but yeah.
Hang on. Alex Graham, who works or ran wall-to-wall TV to begin with.
Hang on a minute. Is that the guy that then went on to win an Oscar?
Quite possibly, and Greg Philo, who's a professor from the sociology department, wrote it. To
be absolutely 100% fact check, but you heard the unfact check.
I've got an email from Alex Graham owning up to it.
So yeah, it was really fun to see these things. There was also footage as well of like Stephen Moffat and John Hardy in these videos. So it was really cool to see all these people way back when, and then ultimately they obviously attended the dinner. It was just, yeah, really good to engage with GUST history in this way. Not only did it allow us to explore our own history and understand more about it, but it allowed others to engage with it too. Now, the GUST 50 archiving kind of project was very much limited by the time we had. Obviously, the project only lasted so long. The people we had and the resources as well. We only had kind of one set of this equipment. We only had so much of it. And as a result, there was way too many tapes for what we could handle during the kind of GUST 50 archiving project. And a lot of those tapes have kind of gone unexplored. So there's a lot more to do. So I think that's something actually for us all to think about. Unfortunately, the university archives have just left the chat, and this is the bit when I was going to have a bit of a call to action, but I'll do it anyway. But this is kind of my educational / thought point / call to action, if at all possible. I know about this kind of things from my kind of archiving masters, but you may or may not, possibly not, be aware of a kind of company and charity called the Digital Preservation Coalition. And what they do is they classify digital media in the same way that we classify animals. Basically, if you think of the way that we classify endangered animals as threatened or critically endangered or extinct, the Digital Preservation Coalition have basically done this exact same thing with different digital media forms. And the kinds of tapes that the old GUST 50 tapes are on, they span the years from 1970 to the early 2000s, and these are all different kinds of portable magnetic media. And that media of this kind by the DPC is literally classified as practically extinct or critically endangered, meaning that these tapes are genuinely at a very, very high risk of data loss due to their rarity, due to degradation, and the availability of equipment required to play the tapes. Obviously, it was a very difficult situation 10 years ago to digitize some of those tapes. We obviously had to bodge together those machines that are probably still sitting getting dusty in the GUST office, let's be honest. So I'm not really sure what we can do to ensure that these tapes have a life beyond the archive shelf. This is my kind of call to action in that I'm thinking about it now, and it's like if we don't do something about it now, then when will we ever? Because the tapes are only getting older. The availability of equipment to digitize them is only getting rarer. It's only going to become more difficult. And there's this whole aspect of GUST's past that's sitting in the archive that the archive can't play because they don't have the equipment. And I don't know what we're going to do about it, basically. Now, it's probably going to need professional, specialized equipment to be digitized. And I'm not sure there's the funding, the resources, or and I've kind of put in my notes brackets, business urgency to get them digitized. But as I said, if we don't do something now, then perhaps there won't be another chance to do it. So a bit of a solemn point, but perhaps a conversation starter and maybe something all of us can collectively think about and something we can maybe chat to the university archives about, or if there's any kind of fundraising opportunities, or I don't know what needs to be done, but basically these tapes are at big risk of being lost. And as I'll speak about again in this next section of my archive talk, GUST is really important to a lot of people. So it's not just, I wasn't involved in any of that material, but I know a lot of people care about it. So there's maybe something we can do all together. My involvement with the GUST archives hasn't just been, seeing the GUST 50 archive project ongoing, but a few years ago, I got very involved in kind of GUST's digital history. These images I'm showing you now are also from the Internet Archive and are kind of previous iterations of GUST's website up until kind of present day. Literally today, I took that screenshot this morning on the bottom right. So just kind of briefly about my story, which I'll touch on more in the next section about my career and journey after GUST. But when I went back to university to do my Master of Science in Information Management and Preservation, long title, we'll just call it archive studies. What I learned from that experience basically is that I really learned a lot about the vulnerabilities of digital media. And once I finished that degree, I kind of wanted a bit of additional experience working with digital archives and cataloging. And this was also kind of during the pandemic time, so I didn't have many, I couldn't really go anywhere. And the first thing that came to mind for me was the GUST's website, and I immediately recognized that it was extremely vulnerable to data loss. GUST.tv basically used to be the sole comprehensive source of all of GUST's digital history, i.e., completed programs. And it was hosted on a server that was in a room on the other side of the GUST office that when I was in GUST, we did have like an SRC tech person who kind of worked with the server and worked with us, but I know that in the years after I graduated, that same kind of technical support was not available, and that server was basically in a locked room and nobody really did anything about it. And the real threat was that if that server died, then GUST's website and so many people's programs would just be gone. So I was like, well, I want something to do, so let's make a little project out of this. So I got in touch with the GUST team at the time, got them on board, and they gave me access to the GUST website backend and things. And the plan was basically for me to create a comprehensive digital archive of all of GUST's programming past as it appeared on GUST.tv, which is where programs were and generally still are broadcast. So the process was really just to begin downloading from WordPress and cataloging away. There was a bit of methodology to the madness, which was kind of developed off the back of my degree. There's still room to improve in this, and this is not necessarily a absolutely be-all and end-all kind of professional catalogue, but tried to use some kind of archival standards that I worked with and a system that would make the catalogue easy to use. So I started cataloguing the programs. The programs on the website spanned from circa 2003 to present day. At the time I started the project, it was 2021. When I finished it, it was 2022. So I started cataloguing away. I think I did 2003 to about 2012. And then, as you do, you move house and take a break, and you've, got to move furniture and things like that. So I took a break for a few months. And then I came back to the project a couple months later, went to go start up as normal, went to GUST.tv, and the website was down. And didn't think anything of it. That sometimes happens. Waited a few days. GUST.tv was still down. And it was still down for like a week. So I contacted GUST, and basically the very thing that we were all trying to avoid, and the whole reason for doing this project, happened too soon. Spoiler, the server died. And I wasn't even finished the project. I hadn't done it. I'd moved flat, and I was blaming myself hugely for ages in that I didn't manage to save everything. So I got up to 2012, and we still had a big gap of a decade. We still had like 2012 to 2022 to kind of reconcile. So it was a big mission to kind of piece together the past. I spoke to GUST, and thankfully we managed to find out that 2017 to 2020 was saved locally, kind of on a disk in the office. So I was like, cool. 2017 to 2020, sorted. We know that that's safe. I'll just go to the GUST office at a later point and I'll pick that up. 2020 to 2022 was still on the website, so that was fine. But I then had this really kind of ironic gap between 2012 to 2016. And if you remember the years that I was in GUST, it was 2012 to 2016. But funnily, when I finished in GUST, off the back of GUST 50, everybody really encouraged me to submit our materials to the archive. I'd learned so much about the importance of GUST during the GUST 50 year that when I finished my time as controller, I made sure to put together like a USB stick and a physical folder of papers and lists and everything. And I gave like my 2 years of controller to the university archives, and I knew that they had a copy. So then suddenly the only gap that I had was 2012, 2013. Again, that still kind of spans my time in GUST, so I knew enough about it that I could go to the university archives because I knew that we had given them hard drives from those years. They weren't done in the same kind of as comprehensive a way. They just used to basically be like computer backups, but they still had those hard drives, so I could go along to the archives, plug it into my computer, and start searching for programs. But I didn't always know what exactly I was looking for. So in trying to kind of piece together this past of 2012 onwards, the best way to do that and the best way to find an actual kind of record of what programs I was looking for, what the title was, what date they came out, because I needed that information for the catalogue too, was to go via GUST's social media. We used to always publish the programs on Facebook as well and share them there. So I just started going through the Facebook timeline, and I just started adding to my list, and I had dates and titles. And then I had to pick up the pieces on the other end and find the kind of the video file counterpart to add to that. So it was an absolute mission of like piecing together bits and pieces. I was asking friends as well if they still had files available that they could share. And after a really long time, we had a big catalogue that kind of looks like this. This is a part of the catalogue that's particularly well filled out. It's not all this well filled out, but we kind of got there as much as we could. I kind of had a minimum metadata set that I kind of developed off the back of a standard, if you even care what it's called ISAD-G, the International Standard of Archival Description (General). It's not normally applied to video files, but it's a standard that I learned on my degree, and I figured they've kind of got 6 minimum metadata categories, including things like date and title, creator. I've forgotten the others, but it basically means that every record in here has those 6 pieces of metadata at a minimum for you to explore, and anything else is, a bonus. So you can see I've got columns there like duration and dimensions, and I've removed some files because this is the redacted version, but people's, names and things as well. So it took a long time. The whole project took me about 1.5 years to do it all. And in this catalogue, there are 1,119 catalogue entries, and over 900 video files accompany those entries. So all of that hard work was reduced to 2 hard drives. I gave 1 copy to GUST to keep. Hopefully you still have it, hopefully. And the other copy lives with the Glasgow University archives, where it is being permanently preserved digitally. So through this project, I managed to save, from my own calculations, from that period of 2003 to 2022, 89% of GUST's digital archive was saved. We did lose 11% in the process, and that was because we never backed it up, basically. There's obviously going to be data loss when something like your main server dies. So the fact that I managed to save 89%, and collectively we'd all managed to hold on to that much, even if it was in lots of different places, is honestly a bit of a miracle. Because over the years, I know that from friends asking me and speaking to friends all the time that, GUST is so important to so many people, and these files are actually exciting and fun to have. And multiple times have friends ask me, oh, do you still have a copy of this, or do you still have a copy of that? And if I had not done this at literally the most perfect time, then we would have no record of GUST really from 2003 to 2022. Some people might have individual files, but it would never be in one comprehensive place. But yeah, there's still more work to do with this. I really encourage GUST and all student television stations to send their work to your university archives, and just make a backup, make a catalogue, make a list. And the thing is, do not wait. I swear, do not wait. Do it now. Digital files, our personal files, are often the most vulnerable things. They're so susceptible to corruption. They're so susceptible to data loss. You never know when something like this could happen. So don't just rely on a server like we did for so long to hold all of your programming history. Back it up, send it to an archive, or have a bunch of different copies. GUST have a copy, university archives have a copy. They're preserving it. I have about 3 copies in my flat. I've copied it to like 3 different hard drives. Like, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. I've considered getting a fireproof safe thing for some of it, important papers as well, but I would probably put that in. But, just act now if you want to start thinking about your station's past. Just, yeah, do it now. We're really lucky that we have as much as we do from GUST. So, yeah. That's my experience with the GUST archives. Sorry, that turned a bit passionate at the end, but yeah, back your stuff up. I'll take a little break for water and or any immediate questions, comments, etc.
So has anyone got any questions on the archive, or anything that they can remember from the archives?
Well, first of all, say thank you to Sarah for doing that, making all that effort to preserve it, because in my day, it was tapes on shelves, and we thought, there'll always be somewhere to play it. But I know, from a professional life, I think it's ITV Sport, where they've calculated the amount of tapes they have in their archive and the amount of working head hours of the machines they need to play them. Like, there's just not enough. They can't keep everything. They can't transfer it all. They have to pick and choose what they can get back off the tapes and use.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
Knowing that there's a whole load of U-matic stuff, and I think there's probably a fair bit of mini DV as well from my area. you could sit and ingest it all, but you might not be able to before you run out of equipment that works.
Exactly. And the thing is as well with archives, and I know this from, working professionally now, that there's quite often archives are notoriously underfunded, understaffed. There's always a backlog to work with. There's just never enough time, money to do these things. So that's kind of what I'm talking about with the GUST tapes that are still sitting in the university archives as well. I don't know what the conversation is beyond this. Oh, hello, Emma. Emma might tell us more. Emma works for the university archives, and I've been in touch with Emma ever since I was controller in GUST. So it is Emma I dealt with when I donated our materials. It's Emma I dealt with when we were digging out all the stuff for the digital archive, and I gave her my copy. So she knows the most about it. But yeah, it's difficult with these tapes on the shelves that we don't have equipment to play.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say a little bit kind of about that. So yeah, like Sarah said, exactly. We've got all these tapes kind of sitting on the shelves and that kind of thing. We have made a little bit of progress in the past 10 years, not as much as I'm sure everybody would like, but now we know we have a list of all the tapes that are in the boxes, just judging by what it actually says on the outside of the tapes. So we hope that what it says on the outside of the tapes is what is actually in there. So we've got 36 boxes in total of the kind of old tapes. I think we got them in 2013. So it would have been kind of the year before the last anniversary. And yeah, it really is. It's about resource. I mean, across all of library collections, we've got hundreds, thousands of tapes. We've got like media production unit tapes. We've got things that AV services have created, all that kind of thing. So GUST is like part of this massive backlog that we have. And like you said, the technology for actually being able to view these, we don't have them in the university really anymore. So we would be looking to kind of outsource it. And it's funding. We don't get a budget for this, so we would have to make a special case to get like external funding or anything like that. So if anybody wants to back us up on it, we can say, look, people really want to see this stuff. We have to do something about it. So yes, within the past 10 years, well, really within the past couple of years, we've been doing a big project to list all of the audiovisual material that we have at the university, to actually quantify what we've got so we can start looking at, right, what have we got? What is the most at risk? We use the bit list as well for, all these kind of things. So yeah. And just to anybody who's here on the call, we are very happy to take anything that you do have. Dawn, I think we'd been talking before. I need to email you back about, any material that you've got. We have a digital archive now. Since 2021, we've had a digital archive. So we're set up, with server space, digital preservation, blah, 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 to actually look after the digital stuff. So yeah, give us your things, GUST.
Yes, donate to them. One thing I meant to say actually as well, that was kind of touching on things that we spoke about earlier when I was talking about kind of digital footprint, etc. Obviously, I have a copy of the archive, so does the uni, so does GUST. If anybody does have any programs that they want, like if they made it and they want a copy, then just give me a shout. I've given you a link in this resource page that I've made for the end that I can share to kind of a copy of the GUST archive. So if there's any files that you need, then give me a shout. But it's probably very unlikely at this moment in time that all of those programs will go back up online, mainly because, again, kind of like funding and resources and time, we don't have those. And also we need to make considerations as well about whether people would want these up online. I'm acting kind of as a professional now. I'm not really a student anymore, so I'm a bit, more savvy to the law and a bit less lax about those things as I was back then. So, we do have to be careful of people's privacy and whether that's something that they would want back up online. So if that was a project that we ever wanted to do, there'd be a lot of consents probably involved. But unfortunately, at this moment in time, I don't think it's on the cards to put the whole kind of digital archive back up online, unfortunately, just for those reasons.
Yeah, you can view it in our reading rooms. We've got 2 different reading rooms, one in the library and one just off campus, where you can view all of the stuff that Sarah has gathered together for personal and educational purposes. So yes, you can view them there.
Sarah, Dom, is it worthwhile me saying a few things about what's going to happen in the next few weeks from me?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Emma, hi. In a couple of weeks' time, well, I should say that I come from the period 1973-75. So it's right back at a long while ago, 50 years ago. We didn't have video that could be recorded easily. There has been, I think in 1981, there was a compilation tape made of material from my period, from my time. And the earliest recording that is in the archive, video recording is in the archive, I have actually partially restored and put on YouTube, which is Greg Philo doing the principal's address to freshers, which is definitely before October 1973, because I remember seeing it on my first day in GUST. So it is the oldest recording that you've got on GUST that I know about. It was recorded for all the techies. I'm sure there's nobody here that knows anything about it, on 1-inch C Ampex, which was a very old format even at the time. So, and then the type of tapes that we had in my time were IVC 1-inch, which are reel-to-reel video. I expect there's nothing there, and I expect there's also no machines available to play them back. So consequently, what I've got and what I ferreted away, much like yourself, Sarah, about 50 years before, or 40 years before, was I dubbed off the audio from some of the videotapes, and also have master recordings that I recorded of Billy Connolly and the Goodies. And all that will be lodged with the GU archive in about 3 weeks' time. But it's not just the tapes. I've actually sort of put together a digital version of it, fully documented, so that should help if anybody wants to do something around that period. 50 years, it's I can't say it's GUST 50 because that's kind of like trademarked, isn't it? But it's certainly 50 years since the guys who are actually guys and gals who are actually involved in my set at GUST, and we're actually getting together in February, would you believe? So if anyone in GUST actually wants to do a special program on 50 years of GUST, you can get access to some of the original performers, players, interviewers. I've got Dr. Gillian McDougall, who interviewed Billy Connolly and the Goodies and quite a few other people, and she does the interview with the Streaker. I don't know if you come across that on the old archive stuff. So that's my piece. It's all going to happen in a couple of weeks. Emma, look forward to seeing you with a big pile of... I'll shut up now, okay?
Oh, amazing. Thank you, Don. Yeah, it's great to know that some people have just held on to their own archives from GUST, and that the archive can constantly be expanding. And yeah, as I said, there's still a lot of work to do. Another thing on my list actually to do is really to ideally save all of the material that's on GUST's old YouTube channel. I've become aware recently that for various reasons, administrative reasons at the SRC, GUST no longer have access to the YouTube channel that we used to use when I was in, or at least unless anything has changed since I last spoke to you guys, but I didn't catalogue anything from the old YouTube channel when I did the digital archive project because it wasn't within the scope of what I was planning to do at the time. But the GUST 50 kind of digitized videos are on there. There's other material that didn't make it to the website. That's maybe the next challenge when I can get some stamina. But then maybe if I wait, maybe it'll be deleted. Who knows? So I better hurry up. Anyway, what I'll do is I'll try rattle through my last little bit of the talk. I realize we've been here for an hour and I was supposed to speak for 45 minutes, but we'll keep on going. But what I'll do now is I'll speak about what I do today and how GUST has literally propelled me exactly to where I am today. Like absolutely everything I do right now, the house I sit in, everything really I have to give to my experience in GUST, and would honestly be absolutely nowhere without it. So let me just talk about what I did after I graduated. Here we are. Okay, great. Next slide. Here we are. Okay, so as I said at the beginning, I'm now an archive producer, and I've been in TV for just over 8 years, and I've done lots of different roles. So I graduated in 2016 with my Master of Arts in Film and TV. I didn't really have any major media experience. I'd done a work experience with the Aberdeenshire Council Media Unit when I was like 14 for a week, and then I had a summer job working for a corporate production company between third and fourth year of uni. I was a production assistant for them, but I knew that I didn't want to go into corporate production specifically. It just wasn't really for me. Had a great time doing that summer job, but I thought I would try something else out. I didn't always have it in my head that I wanted to work in TV specifically. Ever since I was about 14, I knew I wanted to work in kind of quote unquote media, but I never really knew what exactly. So I thought, there's a really big TV industry in Glasgow, so let's see if I can get some actual TV experience and see if I like that. So let's see what we can do. I did consider moving for a little bit as well. I did apply to a job down in London and I got invited down for a final stage interview. And had I got it, I was like really willing to move at that point. I thought, oh, maybe I've had my time in Glasgow. Maybe it's time to move. But I didn't get it. So I was back in Glasgow and I thought, well, we'll just give it a go here, see what happens. So how I got my very first job in TV was that it was kind of 50% good timing, like perfect timing, and 50% kind of who I knew. And the way I used to get jobs and the way I still kind of get jobs now is just emailing people. I just email people, email companies that I like, and I'll just say, hey, this is me. Here's a bit about me. Here's my CV. If you got anything going, let me know. So this must have been kind of July or August 2016 after I graduated, and there was a TV company, an independent production company in Glasgow that I really liked, that made a program that I'd enjoyed, and I sent them one of my usual emails. Hey, this is me, here's my CV, what do you think? And that company, turns out, and I didn't know this because I didn't see it, that very same day they put out an entry-level position job. I don't even know what website it was on. I never saw it. I didn't find this out until later, but they were advertising for a job that I was essentially eligible for that very same day. So that's kind of 50% of the luck, which was good timing. And the other 50% was the person who picked up my email was a production coordinator who was in GUST in 4th year when I was in 1st year. So I think I'd seen them maybe at GUST 50, or if they were not there, then maybe 3 years prior. Hadn't seen one another in years, but we knew one another. We got on well. And they were the person that picked up my email. I don't know if they were absolutely responsible for hiring. I'm sure it was somebody above had to make the decision, but they saw the email come through. They were like, oh, wow, so nice to hear from you. They already knew kind of what experience I had because they knew exactly what I'd done in GUST, and that's pretty much the absolute majority of my experience. And I don't know, they ran it by their bosses or something, and I got my very first job in TV, literally just because I sent an email on the right day and the person who picked up my email was in GUST. So I got my very first TV role for a 5-week contract on a program called Icetown Life on the Edge, which was for BBC Worldwide, which is an observational documentary series about life in Svalbard, which is kind of the islands to the very north of Norway, if you're not familiar with it, in the Arctic Circle. And yeah, I was just a post-production assistant. I was credited as a runner, but same difference, for 5 weeks. And that basically kickstarted everything, because once you kind of get your first job, I find that you'll speak to somebody and they'll give you an email address for somebody else. And really, that's kind of how it went from there on out. I got a contact from them, got the next job, the next one, it all unfolded. So after that, I ended up working in entertainment quite a lot. My first big job after that was on a game show, which is no longer on TV, but 15 to 1 on Channel 4. Sandy Toksvig used to host it. And I was the production runner on that. I was on that job for about 6 months. And another funny GUST encounter on this job is that the researcher on that program was Lisa Hogg. And I don't know if you know Lisa. Her name has actually since changed. But Lisa was my controller when I was in 1st year. So again, she'd already been and gone, been through GUST already, managed to make herself get a career for herself in TV. And she worked with me again on 15 to 1, which is amazing. So I started off kind of doing runner jobs on usually quite a few entertainment shows, or kind of, factual entertainment or entertainment, other game shows like Eggheads, Impossible. And it was just so exciting to be in studio shows like that, because so much of what we do in GUST is obviously in the studio. So to have the experience of being in a professional studio for the first time and seeing how it all works, and the glitz and the lights, and see the floor manager doing the floor manager job, and it was just crazy to actually see that in real life. And yeah, it was really amazing. Oh, and I worked on Robot Wars as well, and there's me with my childhood my childhood hero, Sir Kill-a-Lot. Used to watch Robot Wars a lot growing up, and it was cool to work on the revival for a week in a like -5 hangar in Renfrew, by the way. You would blow your nose in there and it would be black because of all the dust in the air. But fun job. And anyway, from there on out, got lots of freelance runner jobs, and then I kind of moved on and moved up to become a researcher. Still worked in some game shows and things. That photo on the left of the 3 cars is I worked on this game show that was like a driving game show, and they would be driving and they'd get a question through their like sat nav, and it would say, you know, oh, if you think the answer to this question is turn left at the T-junction or turn right at the T-junction, and you would have to kind of make decisions based on driving decisions, and you'd go on certain routes based on your answers and things. It was quite fun. But I did lots of researcher jobs. I kind of worked in casting, I worked in development. I had a 6-month stint as an archive researcher. I was jumping between property shows like location, documentaries, consumer programs, entertainment, did lots of things. I think the good thing about working in Glasgow as well is because the industry is quite like a bit smaller up here, you have more opportunity to kind of jump between roles, which is quite exciting. But I kind of got to a stage in my career where I didn't know what to do next. I'd had fun in studio and location, but all my researcher friends were moving up to assistant producer. And I just didn't really see myself doing the same thing. And I was having a bit of a crisis, as everybody does every now and then. And was kind of thinking, do I want to leave TV? Do I still want to do this? What other things am I interested in? What should I do? And I was contemplating other things that I was interested in or how I could apply this to my life in TV. And my experience with GUST and GUST 50 came to mind. And one thing that I'd been interested in ever since I kind of first started engaging with archives during GUST 50 was, well, archives. I was really interested ever since I first met Emma by what the role of an archivist was and what they do in archives. And I love the idea that you could work somewhere where you get to look at stuff, find out cool things, organize stuff. Basically, those are my key skills. That is how my brain works. I love to organize. I love to look at things. And I was like, how can I turn that into a job? So in this little crisis I was having, this was in 2019, 2020, instead of moving up to assistant producer like all my friends were doing, I decided to have a break. And I went back to uni for a year to do the Master of Science at Glasgow Uni in Information Management and Preservation. So that is an accredited degree, which you typically don't always need to, but are sometimes asked to have if you want to be a kind of professional archivist or records manager. So I learned all about how to manage those things, learned about archival standards, etc., etc. And during that course as well, we also had to do a 2-week placement. And I was lucky to get my placement at the BFI National Archive down in Berkhamsted in Hertfordshire, which was a really cool experience. I was working with a collection in their special collections, which is kind of their paper, I think it was called something like scripts, posters and ephemera department, so kind of physical archives rather than film. But it was really cool because I got to deal with a lot of slides and photos and paperwork, and the collection I was working on of a man called Ivor Beddoes also worked on films like Superman and Star Wars, and in the collection I was dealing with there was copies of scripts, not original copies obviously, just photocopies of versions of scripts, but some of these scripts that I was handling were kind of original versions or kind of redrafts before the final version, which was quite cool. I don't know any of the scripts well enough to absolutely know what the changes were, but it's quite cool to be handling something that actually wasn't even the final version. But that was a really cool experience, and I then graduated in the middle of the pandemic in 2020. Which was a bit of a weird time, of course, and it wasn't planned, but everything kind of worked out in my favour a bit in that because of the pandemic and nobody could go filming, there was a real demand for archive programs, which is just as well. I just specialised in it. So that's what I decided to do. I went back to TV and decided to use my kind of new skills and knowledge and interests to kind of market myself as an archive researcher. So that's kind of what I've been doing ever since. I'd say I've been specialised for, about 4 years now. And here's some of the programmes I've worked on. Some have been really archive heavy. Some have been a bit more playful. It's largely documentaries that I work on, but not always. Sometimes it's just, a story that needs a little bit of archive in it, like Get the Tunes On I worked on just before Christmas, and that was a kind of comedy, music-y show, but they still needed somebody to deal with finding footage from other places. So basically those skills that I described that I really like, looking at things, organizing things, that's what I get to do all day, every day now. My actual role, and I'll read my actual notes so I'm not just saying nonsense to you, is my actual role, I kind of find footage to support the narrative of a documentary. So if there's a story that we want to tell and we need specific historical footage, then it's my job to go away and find that, because obviously we cannot film the past ourselves and we often don't own that footage already, so it's my job to go away and explore lots of different archives and resources and find the footage that we want to use and put it forward to consideration to the other producers and watch a lot of stuff, organize a lot of stuff, my two favorite things. And then I have to do the other stuff that's involved in my job, which is kind of copyright and licensing, which is paying a lot of money to use this footage. Because if anybody wants a side hustle, sell your footage because you can get a lot of money for it. Is what you should know. Some of the prices that I pay for stuff on some of these programs is absolutely astronomical. But that's what I do every day now. It's quite fun that sometimes in my job as well, I do get to actually go to physical archives too. In my most recent project, which was fun, and I'll talk about in just a sec, I did get to go through to the National Records of Scotland, which is through in Edinburgh, and look at a lot of their paper collections and access kind of rare materials from them. So it's really cool to actually go through to other archives sometimes and view stuff on site, because I love doing that too. But this is really serendipitous timing and slightly self-indulgent, but my most recent project actually came out yesterday. You wouldn't believe the timing, honestly. But my most recent project that I worked on, and I got my archive producer credit, which is very exciting because up until very recently, I've been kind of an archive assistant producer, assisting nobody, mind you. It's just been me, but well, that's somebody else's problem. But finally got kind of an archive producer credit on this show, which is exciting. It's called Inside Barlinnie. It dropped on BBC iPlayer yesterday. It's a 3-part series about Barlinnie Prison, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's a prison in Glasgow, kind of in the East End, really notorious institution, which has been on the go since the 1880s and is still operational. It's supposed to be closing, but and I think it maybe will close eventually, but a new prison is being built, and there's a lot of history about this prison. People used to be hanged there. There's been riots. Some famous figures have been in there too. There was also a really exciting and interesting unit in the prison during the kind of 70s to 90s called the Barlinnie Special Unit, where prisoners were basically allowed to wear their own clothes, have as many visitors as they wanted. Some of them had cats. They did art, and some really notorious criminals went into the Barlinnie Special Unit and basically came out reformed as professional artists and stuff. So we've got a lot of cool footage in there. There's also a lot of contemporary footage too as well. But that's really cool that came out yesterday, just in time for me to promote it a little bit today. But you can check that out if you want to see the kind of things that I work on. But I finished that job in kind of August, and I'm now working on a series which you might know. I've gone back to my game show roots, actually. I'm working on a series called Popmaster TV for Channel 4 with Ken Bruce, who used to be on the radio. Just a music quiz show, and I'm doing the music clearance on that. So a little bit different to my normal role, but still kind of dealing a little bit with like copyright and rights and finding stuff. Not so much looking at stuff, but listening to stuff. So that's what I'm doing just now. And also very excitingly this year as well, for the first time I got to attend the Edinburgh TV Festival. I was very lucky to get selected for one of their talent schemes this year called Ones to Watch. I believe about 300 people applied for this and 25 of us get picked. So I got to attend that earlier this year, which was so fun. I got to meet 24 other amazing kind of mid-level career folk from all over the UK who do a variety of different roles. And it was a really amazing kind of networking experience, really cool to see lots of talks. And we get to kind of have this sort of status, I guess, for the next year, which is usually quite good for your CV and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of where I am now. And GUST, honestly, has really given me absolutely everything I have. My friends, my confidence, my skills, my connections really to even succeed in this industry. And of course, it's very technically GUST that spurred my initial interest in archives and helped me get my first job and helped me specialize in what I do today. Like really, I have absolutely everything that I've ever done since I graduated from uni like I have GUST to thank. So yeah, I'm just really pleased that I can give back a little bit today by sharing my experiences and talking to you all about archives, and hopefully that's a little bit helpful and inspiring as well. I recognise that GUST is just so important to so many people. As I said already, I didn't really realise the gravity of it until 2014 myself, and it's just sent me on this kind of huge upward trajectory to where I am today, even now. So I'm out of breath suddenly. But what I'm going to do is I watched for the first time in 10 years my GUST 50 speech. I'm not playing it all to you, don't worry, it's like 30 seconds. But just, I think 19-year-old me, controller Sarah in 2014, can just say a little bit of what I would probably say today. I've spoken enough so she can kind of speak for me, I think, in this moment. The cadence at the end of this isn't quite right, but because I cut it from like the middle of my speech, but the essence and the words of what I'm saying here, I think, is pretty much just what I would say today about my thoughts of student TV and my thankfulness for my time in GUST. Oh, where's my slides gone? Here we go.
The essence of student television is the spirit of students. There's something remarkable about the freedom that student television allows. There really are no boundaries to what you can make. Your time in student television is to explore, experiment, and grow. The experience you gain here has been proven to put people in good stead for a career in media. Others may not necessarily go down that route, but they will hold their time in GUST in their hearts forever. The opportunities that are available to us at this institution and the people with whom I have the privilege to work with are unrivaled. GUST really has made my time at university so far, and I want all the best for the station. Hopefully I'll be able to make it to GUST 100.
Oh wow, they laughed. Anyway, yeah, as I said, the cadence isn't quite right, but I think the sentiment of everything that I would say today is genuinely what I would say then. Like, student TV is one of the best things I have ever done. I think the only thing that really trumps joining GUST in terms of decision is deciding to go to the University of Glasgow, because that has to inevitably precede the decision to join GUST. And really, I have not looked back ever since. So let me just say, yeah, I'm just really happy to be here today.
The essence of student television.
Apologies. But yeah, thank you so much for having me today. Thank you, Dom, for organising. Thank you, Bethany, and the current GUST team for carrying this station into its 60th year. Thank you for giving me everything that I have and keeping it running. And yeah, happy birthday, GUST. And I'll share this resources with everybody at the very end. Thank you. Oh, and if anybody wishes to contact me or anything, then my email was there also, but I'll share this as a PDF in the chat if anybody is interested in the resources and links that I've kind of put together as additional resource. What's the word I'm after? So I've spoken so much, I've just like forgotten how to speak at all anymore. But yeah, if anybody wants to do further research or look into anything further, then I'll try share these in the chat so that you can you send files? Oh, apparently not. I don't know. I'll figure out a way to do this or get Dom to maybe email something round. Oh, no, I don't know how to. Sorry. Grandma didn't look this up.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for doing this and having us. And it's been so nice to relive a bit of what none of us got to experience. And yeah, hopefully we'll just keep the good vibes going. I don't know what to say, but yeah, no, it's so nice to hear from you and to see some familiar faces, meet some new faces, some faces I feel like I'd messaged but never actually gotten to know. And yeah, it's so great to see all of you.
Hey, Sarah, can I just say something? Sarah, can I just say something? Your speech is wonderful because you could actually say that speech 50 years before and still be the same message, because GUST was so important back for us then as well. And for the folks in GUST there, I'm looking forward to seeing you in 3 weeks' time. I think I've got an invite to see you.
I'm so excited to see you, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm really grateful that you're coming and spending your time to come and see us. So we're really excited.
Really looking forward to it. Cheers. Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Dom.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks very much, Sarah, and happy birthday, GUST. And thanks everyone for attending. And yeah, we'll try and put a few more events on. So keep an eye on the Student Television Alumni Network for future events. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming tonight, and we will see you all soon, I'm sure.
Great. Thanks for coming, everybody. Unless there's any other questions or anybody wants to chat, then stick around. If not, you're free to leave. And thank you so much for coming.